name's Blake Rocap, and I'm the legislative counsel at Avow and the legal director at Jane's Due Process. I like working with Progress Texas. I can always count on them to get out the progressive, values-based message that all of our allied organizations fighting on all sorts of different issues are pushing.
It's Tuesday, April 1st, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. The full picture and the actual impact of Governor Abbott's delay in calling a special election to replace the late Congressman Sylvester Turner in Houston's Congressional District 18 continues to develop. To put it one very simple way, for purely political purposes and to give the Republicans in the U.S. House a single vote advantage, our governor is denying representation to close to 1 million Texas taxpayers, and most of them are people of color. Abby Church at the Houston Chronicle says acting Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee, the acting part there because he's staying in office until the governor declares an election, for which Menifee was the first to file as a candidate, held a press conference yesterday to demand that Governor Abbott do his job and allow the open congressional seat to be filled, and threatening legal action if he doesn't. During the presser, Menifee said he wants an election held in June and says, quote, if Governor Abbott tries to play fresh and does not call this election before November, I will sue him. Governor Abbott, don't put Donald Trump before the people of the 18th Congressional District. Don't play games with our communities. The 18th Congressional District is not a political toy. Your silence is suppression. Your doing nothing is disenfranchising our community, unquote, and agreed. The view from outside the state from J. David Goodman at the New York Times paints the picture in D.C., where Abbott's move is just one part of a broader undermining of Democratic representation by Republicans in power. The GOP holds a slim 218 to 213 majority over the Democrats, but 2 open House seats in Florida are looking likely to be filled by Republicans after a special election being held there today. Abbott gives an edge to the GOP in delaying this election, which happens to concern a seat representing some of Houston's oldest black communities, as well as its downtown area. Another Democratic candidate for Mr. Turner's seat, former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards, said, quote, this moment requires us to place people over politics. Failure to do so will leave nearly 800,000 community members unrepresented, unquote. Rice University political science professor Mark P. Jones says legally the governor is within the law to hold the seat open until 2026. But every day of additional delay sends a very clear message to all of the Texans who live in Houston's 18th Congressional District, and that is that Greg Abbott wants you silent in D.C. Of course, the same goes for any Texan anywhere in the state who values our public schools. The governor would rather you just shut up already. I mean, he's already been paid and everything. News on private school vouchers from the Capitol and Jaden Edison at the Texas Tribune. He says the House Public Education Committee is eyeballing a $1 billion spending cap for the first 2 years of a potential school voucher program, alongside a $395 per student increase in the base amount of money public schools districts receive from the state, aka the basic allotment. A meeting to discuss all of this yesterday was canceled, however, so what Governor Abbott continues to crow about as a slam dunk appears at this point still pretty wobbly on the rim. We await what Governor Abbott thinks of a spending cap on his long sought-after rebate for Texas's wealthiest families. Details are getting pretty dense, frankly. See the show notes for the rundown from the Trib. If there's one thing I personally can't stand, it's seeing the name of a mass murderer in print. And I won't repeat it here, but Robert Moore at El Paso Matters says the diseased scumbag that we'll just refer to as the El Paso shooter has said outright that he believed he was acting at the direction of President Donald Trump when he murdered 23 people and wounded 22 others at an El Paso Walmart in 2019, or so says his lawyer, Joe Spencer, who told Moore, quote, he thought he had to stop the Hispanic invasion of Texas because that's what his president was telling him. He thought if he doesn't do it, then nobody's going to do it. He's got to start, unquote. You may not recall that Trump actually visited El Paso just 2 days after this horrific mass murder rocked that community to its core in the summer of 2019. He ignored pleas from much of El Paso's elected leadership that he stay away because they felt his rhetoric may have played a role in the shooting. And in fact, the shooter himself points to a speech given by Trump in Florida that May, in which Trump smiled and joked when an audience member shouted out that migrants should be shot. The shooter bought his gun just weeks later in June and drove 10 hours from Allen to El Paso on August 3rd, 2019. A deeper dive into the mentality of this monster is instructive and also unsettling, as that rhetoric has certainly not stopped, and there's no telling how many similarly weak-minded individuals are seeking their opportunity to have their name in the headlines. See the El Paso Matters link in the show notes. On that note, it used to sound paranoid to think that the government might be spying on you, but in Texas, there's plenty of evidence that might actually be totally true, especially if you're politically active in opposition to the Republican regime. Francesca D'Annunzio at the Texas Observer writes on the technology deployed across Texas right now with Governor Abbott's anti-migrant paramilitary apparatus known as Operation Lone Star serving as its catalyst. As the Texas Department of Public Safety's surveillance capabilities, driven by artificial intelligence, spy planes, unmanned drones, wildlife game cameras, and more, has grown to truly Big Brother level proportions. The Texas Observer has discovered that Texas DPS has spent millions on building an AI-driven, almost seamless surveillance system that, quote, can mine billions of images to provide facial recognition, track vehicle locations from automatic license plate readers, monitor phone conversations of inmates in Texas prisons and jails, break into and search for data evidence from seized cell phones and computers, and even track cell phones without a warrant, unquote. All while lawmakers in Austin are just starting to stumble into the very beginnings of some degree of regulation on the use of AI against the public, which they seem to barely even understand. For me, as paranoid as it sounds, knowing what I know about how far the opposition will go to stay in power, and after reading this article, I'm just going to assume that they're watching me, and as one of our listeners, you probably should too. This makes even small legal missteps hazardous, especially in a time of political strife. It's important for all of us to watch our step, and seems to me a pretty terrible time to be keying Teslas in the HEB parking lot, much like we advised for our friends engaging in protests, which we still highly encourage. Let's do keep it clean and don't give them an excuse. Progress Texas is proud to welcome San Antonio Mayor Ron Nierenberg as our guest for a live podcast taping and fundraising party on Tuesday, May the 6th in San Antonio, and you're invited. We look forward to a long overdue and fun get-together with y'all at our Party for Progress in San Antonio. Mark that date, Tuesday, May 6th, live pod taping with Mayor Ron Nierenberg, and good fun with you. See the show notes and get your tickets right now. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, but they far outmatch us in funding. Oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups spend a lot of money keeping their audiences in the dark. If you've come to appreciate the light we shine on important political news in Texas on a daily, ongoing basis, please know that our regular, everyday listeners form a key component of our funding. If that's you, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Norma Jane Lestraco, Maria Jimenez, and Kristen Hartwell, all of whom have joined the team lately. We appreciate all of you very much. While you're at our website, be sure and grab the merch to match your progressive values from our web store. Y'all means all, Revolution, and our most popular Humans Against Ted Cruz t-shirts are all union printed right here in Texas, and they're all waiting for you now at progresstexas.org. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Watch out for pranksters today, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.